If you're like me and you listen to Mike, you will laugh, for sure. You may cry, but what he brings most to us, at least for me, and I hope you feel this too, is a chance to remember. Remember who you are. Remember why you're here. Remember what's important. He is one of our resident speakers. We get to have the pleasure of his presence about once a quarter. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Foley, please help me welcome him.
Thank you, Laura. Oh, good morning. How's everybody doing? Good. Well, welcome. Before I get started, I just want to introduce a dear friend of mine, Michael Wagner, over here. Michael is an amazing musician and songwriter, and he'll be, so you have a treat today with Michael's music. So before we get started, why don't we all just land here? So why don't you just close your eyes, drop whatever you got in your hands, and just close your eyes and take a nice deep breath. I'll do the same. And think back to all the stuff you had going on this week, all the running around, all the chaos, all the scrambling, and just with each breath, just let the entire week just go. So take another inhale. And one more just like that. And let this be the 1 hour this week where you don't have to do a thing. There's no expectation here at all. If you don't want to sing, you don't even have to sing. Just receive. Just let this be the 1 hour where you stop. You open your heart, open your mind, and just let this be the week, the hour this week where you actually feel nourished and receive from the universe. Sounds good, huh? Nothing to do but receive. All right. You can come on back to the room. And with that, so the title that you might have seen in the bulletin was, the original title was God in Heavy Disguise. Well, my little disclaimer is these talks don't get downloaded until like a day or two before the actual talk. So, I have to change the title. I'm sorry. The title is going to be Enter at Your Own Peril. All right. So how this came about was a few days ago, Michael and I were just checking in to just kind of tune into all of you. And we always think that there's no coincidence, there's no mistake, that this talk that's being, and these songs that are being downloaded to us, it's for you. And I'm always as curious as you are to see what's going to be coming out because, I'm just passing this on. And as we talked about just the state of the world affairs and politics and, internationally, the word that kept coming up in the conversation was discord and discordant over and over and over again. And that seems to be the theme that's kind of in our world right now, is choppy waters. Anybody sense that as well? We've got the end of the year coming, the 2012, we got the political, very divisive situation with our country right now, internationally. So it's as if individually and collectively we're being compelled to cross an ocean. The old ways simply are not working anymore, and it's getting louder, if you haven't noticed. People, and at the same time, we don't know the other side yet. We don't know what that other side looks like, and we're kind of stuck in the middle of the ocean in choppy waters. We can't go back. That's not working anymore, and we can't go forward. And yet, what I'm seeing in the world is people grabbing on tighter than ever to the old, and what is that out of? It's out of fear. It's out of fear. And yet we don't know the other side. So there's like a cultural rift going on right now throughout the world, actually. And Andre Guide says, one does not discover new lands without consenting to lose sight of the shore for a very, very long time. Doesn't that just kind of feel right now like what's going on? In Simon and Garfunkel, they say, when you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I will dry them all. I'm on your side. When times get rough and friends just can't be found, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. When you're down and out, when you're on the street, when the evening falls so hard, I will comfort you. So the question that I'd like to pose for all of us today is, what will our safety be? What will our comfort be? Where do we put our safety? Where do we find comfort in these choppy waters that we find ourselves in? What is our bridge over troubled water in these uncertain times? So as I meditated on this, all week, and what it came in the last day or two was, number one, first we each have to see that we are being deceived from moment to moment to moment. And I know that sounds very ominous. But our mind is not necessarily our friend. It pretends to be our friend, our counselor, our guide, but it steals our attention. And it's kind of like the political, anybody been seeing these political ads where it's trying to steal your attention constantly, where you just have to turn the TV? It's trying to steal your attention, and our mind does the same thing. And anybody ever feel assaulted by your mind? Like it just bombards you with, yeah, me too. So Henry David Thoreau says, most men lead lives of quiet desperation and go to the grave with the song still in them. All right, and I think he's saying the same thing. So once again, I was at this retreat years ago in North Carolina, and the guru had a very southern accent, and he started to talk off with, your mind is not your friend. And I just thought that was really funny. I was like, I'm going to have to remember that one. So how does your mind work? Someone says something to you that's offensive. Somebody says something, and what does your mind do with it? It takes it, and have you noticed this? We don't just chuck it. I repeat it 100 times in my head. It hurt the first time they said it, but what does our own mind do to us? It repeats it 100 times, and each time it repeats it, it's that same visceral effect. I don't realize that it's not from another person. It's that same, feeling every time. So if you ever think anybody's mean to you, give them a break. They did it to you once. How many times do we do it to ourselves? 100 times, right? And years later, we're repeating the same stuff. What our mother said or what our father said. So our mind says to us, without me, you won't survive. Without me, your life will fall apart. You can't take a nanosecond away from me because I hold this whole thing together. Isn't that what our tyrant of a little mind says? Now, hear me out. The mind is not evil. It's just a tool. It's a secondary tool that has taken over the house. That's all. That's all it is. It's like a little 2-year-old that's taken over. What if you had a 2-year-old running your house? All right? That's the mind, the unquestioned mind. So Byron Katie says, an unquestioned mind is the world of suffering. All right? So just to start there. So the second thing that came to me was the movie The Little Buddha. Has anybody ever seen this? The Little Buddha with Keanu Reeves? All right, so he leaves, he's Siddhartha, and he's the prince. He's going to be the king someday, and he's so pure in his heart that he cannot see suffering. So he goes on this huge journey to find out truth, and he studies under all these different people, and he is progressing spiritually. And at one point, he finds himself under the bo tree where he receives his enlightenment, and before he receives his enlightenment, he gets 3 temptations. 3 temptations. The first one is lust. He has all these dancing girls around him, and nothing wrong with attraction in our lives, but what that represented was being attached to worldly materialism that's in our world. The second one is pride, and in this one, he has the demon Mara coming and whispering in his ear, and you'll see on the Buddha statues, you'll see somebody whispering in his ear. That's Mara, and Mara says, you're so spiritual, you've gone beyond any man ever, and yet these people, they don't deserve your teaching. Your teaching is just too profound, and there's no way you should go out and offer yourself to these people. So pride is the second temptation. And then the third temptation, my favorite, is he's sitting there completely still and completely, centered, and over the hill is marching thousands of soldiers. And they get to the top of the hill, and they're ferocious looking, and they take their bows and arrows, and they send the arrows, and the arrows have fire on them. So he just sits, and the flaming arrows are all coming, and he does not budge. He does not move. He does not lift a finger to save himself from the onslaught coming at him. And as he sits there, suddenly all the flaming arrows become lotus petals. And it just starts raining lotus petals all around him. And what that means to me is after the temptations, Mara finally comes to him, or he is speaking and having a conversation with this demon, this Mara, this tempter. And he says, you can no longer deceive me. You can no longer deceive me. And he puts his hand over here. If you'll see the Buddha statues where he's touching the ground. And he says, and the earth is my witness. You can know. And what he's saying to me, anyway, what was coming to me as the interpretation of this is, Mara represents the mind. I need to keep your attention. And the earth represents awareness out here. The earth represents pure, complete awareness without the mind. And to live out here. And that's where the title of my talk came today, which is Enter at Your Own Peril. And the challenge and the question I have for each of us today is it necessary to live in your mind? Or can you live like a baby lives? Anybody notice babies? They live in pure awareness. And every moment, from moment to moment, is the greatest thing that's ever happened. Did you ever see a baby's face? They live in constant, total amazement from moment to moment to moment. And that's what I think the Buddha was saying to Mara was, living out here is my witness, that I can survive and I can live without you. All right? Now, it doesn't mean we don't use the mind. The mind is a fabulous tool. Absolutely. It's a wonderful tool. You know, it composes songs, we learn languages, it figures out science, it puts a man on the moon. But it's a secondary organ to pure awareness. This is the thing that should have dominion over us, is this pure awareness. So I'll come back to that in a minute. So on a practical level, how does this, show up in my life? Well, in my life, I'm a consultant, and every once in a while, the economy will slow down, and I'll have clients calling to cancel, and no, we got to cancel that seminar, and that seminar, and that seminar. And my mind, all the flaming arrows start coming at me, and you're going to lose your business, you're going to be bagging, groceries at Kowalski's, and if I ran with that for the next 7 hours, boy, by the end of the day, I'm in a way different place. So anybody have flaming arrows come at you like that? You get one thing, and then 8 hours later, you're still thinking about the one thing. Now it's just this huge thing. So it's almost like it started off as a little amoeba, but the more I repeat it and the stories I tell, my fictional stories of what might happen, it becomes like this baby Huey in my mind, all right? Anybody have baby Hueys in your mind ever, all right? So my girlfriend Angelica likes to call this a riot within the soul. When we let those thoughts run and run and run, it becomes a riot within the soul. And I thought, that's the coolest little statement I've heard in a long time. So, and the image I get of a riot in soul is it's like a prison riot with sirens and mattresses being thrown and fire and tear gas and riot gear and water cannons. And it's all going on in my mind when we let the mind run the show. When we let the mind, we're not meant, in my opinion, to let the mind run the show. And I look back at my life of how, my family members, and when I was in college, my sister came to me and she said, Mike, you have to help me with this math test. If you don't help me with this math test, it's my last semester in college and I won't graduate. I'm out of money, so that means I won't come back next year, which means I'll be a waitress for the rest of my life, living in a box in Chicago, all because of you. You can tell I didn't come from a Catholic Irish family with a lot of guilt, but that would be an amoeba becoming a baby Huey, all right? So that's what the mind does. It runs and makes all these conclusions. So there's an old Cherokee story, and it says an old Cherokee chief was teaching his grandson about life. A fight is going on inside of me, he said to the boy. It's a terrible fight, and it's between two wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, self-doubt, and ego. The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. This same fight is going on inside of you and inside of every other person that you know. The grandson thought about it for a minute and then asked his grandfather, which wolf will win, grandfather? And the old chief simply replied, "The one you feed, the one you feed." So we do not have the ability to stop thoughts. Go ahead. I love that one when you think you're so enlightened. Just stop your thoughts. We can't do it. Even the enlightened people on the planet, they can't. The thoughts are doing what they're supposed to do. They just keep coming. What we do have dominion over, though, is where we place our attention. That's the only thing, really, when it comes down to it, that we have dominion over. We cannot stop the thoughts, but if you give your attention to your thoughts, now you're starting to build a baby Huey, right? Versus, what if you were to acknowledge the thought, thank you for sharing, and then put your attention back into the pure awareness of living? Wouldn't that be a different way of going about your day? So to me, that's our safety. That's our safety in choppy waters, is staying in pure awareness. What's dangerous is going into the mind and letting the mind run the show. And it's very humbling. So the last thing I'd say on this is there was years ago a quote, and it said, "A mind is a terrible thing to waste." And then a politician messed it up, and he said, "A mind is a terrible thing to lose." And I'd like to say a mind is a terrible place to live, all right? And there should be a big neon sign that says, "Enter at your own peril." We were never meant to live in our mind. We were meant to live as babies doing pure awareness. So it doesn't mean that we don't develop our mind. Once again, it can be developed for wonderful, wonderful things in our world. But in Mark, he says, "I tell you the truth, anyone who does not receive the kingdom like a little child will never enter it." And what I think, once again, he's saying there is, like a child, they live in pure awareness. And if you want to enter into heaven, which is right here, right now, it's in this, that the path is to step out of the mind. Living in the mind is like living in the Mall of America. That's what I should probably call this talk. Right? We got plenty of distractions. We got Camp Snoopy. We got roller coasters. We got cotton candy. We got fine dining, great shopping, and endless entertaining movies, 100 other things to distract us. But there's a price to pay for living in the Mall of America, all right? You never get to see the Eiffel Tower. You get to see a picture of the Eiffel Tower. You get to see a fake Eiffel Tower, possibly, but you never see the light of day. You live under neon lights. You never see the Rocky Mountains, the smell of the ocean, the cry of the loon on the foggy lake, the dog wagging his tail and licking your face, an African safari, the London Museum, the pyramids, the Joffrey Ballet, Broadway, the seasons, Mother Nature, and a hot bath. I don't know if there's any hot baths in the Mall of America. Maybe there is by now, but for the most part, that's the difference. And living in the mind is like living in the Mall of America. It's one-dimensional. Anybody ever notice that you've had the same thought in circular fashion over and over? It's like doing laps around the Mall of America, expecting to see different shops every time you go around the lap. Even when you go to the next floor, there's different. There, at 4 floors, you're done. That's it. That's the extent of your mind. And it's boring. Our mind is, that's the limitation of the mind. It's boring, all right? So it's kind of like living in the mind is like living in a black and white TV, right? I'm old enough, I guess, see some people are possibly my age. Do you guys remember rabbit ears? Do you remember slamming the thing on the side? Whack, whack, whack. And it actually did work. Everybody whacking their plasma TV these days or their flat screen? No? So it's like living in a black and white TV versus a flat screen with Dolby surround sound, all right? Dolby surround sound is living in your awareness. Black and white is living in your thoughts, living in your mind. So the question might be, how will I survive without my mind? And the sages and prophets have been doing it for eons, but it takes a little bit of courage. Socrates says, "I am the wisest man alive, for I know one thing, and that is that I know nothing." Thomas Aquinas, the greatest theologian possibly ever, he said at the end of his life, after a lifetime of study, book after book after book, I know one thing, and that is I cannot know the mind of God. Well, what's the point of all the books there, old Thomas? All right, so once again, not using the mind. And then there's a new pop song, which I just heard the other day. My mind is a box filled with nothing, and that's the way I like it. Catch my disease, Bentley. So once again, just a question to pose. What would your life look like? What would the quality of your life look like if you were to go from moment to moment living in just pure awareness. Then, when you need to pick up the mind, you pick it up as a tool, just like a hammer or a wrench. Hey, I need to figure this out. Pop, pop, pop. Figure it out. Back down into the toolbox. Back into pure awareness. What if you were to live this way? How would your quality of life, what would you notice that you're not noticing right now? What would you feel that you're not feeling right now? How would your life become Technicolor? How would your life become that high-definition TV? You know, and if we're going to find the absolute beauty in life, it's going to be in that pure awareness. Byron Katie says, the miracle of love comes to you in the presence of the uninterrupted moment. If you are mentally somewhere else, you miss real life. So an example would be, I have to drive to St. Paul, all right? I'm going to pick up my mind like a tool. It's going to take me 30 seconds to figure out how to get to St. Paul. It'd probably take 5 seconds, but I figured out, and we'll say 30 seconds. Now, what do I do the other 19 and a half minutes? What do you think? Do I go back into pure awareness? Look at this day. I will never have another day like this ever in my life. I am so grateful. Oh, look, somebody just cut me off. That's okay. Blessings to you, brother. Okay. But what do? I regurgitate old thoughts. I repeat them. The entire 19 and a half minutes, I'm repeating old stuff. Round and round, same old, doing laps around the Mall of America. Oh, gee, did I ever have that thought before? Only 1,000 times, you know, and it's the same stuff. Does that make sense at all? So it's just a challenge just to look at, is it possible to live without the constant barrage of the mind? So let's do an experiment. I like experiments. Let's do it. Yeah, here we got a good participant right here. So let's do an experiment. Are you willing to let me just waste 1 minute of your time? Just 1 minute? All right. All right. Maybe 50 seconds, Mike, but not 1 minute. All right, but 1 minute. So what I'd like you to do is we're going to do an experiment, and as we do this experiment, I want you to be hyper-vigilant of what thoughts come to mind during this minute. And the thoughts that might come to mind sound like, this is dumb, this is awkward, this is a waste of time, I have better things to do, and get on with it already. They might sound like that, all right? So you ready? What I'd like you to do is, for 1 minute, I'd like you to think of a baby that you have had contact with. Think of a baby, grandchild, child, your own child. Think of a baby. Think of how they look around in pure awareness, in absolute constant amazement. And I want you to, this time, keep your eyes open. This time, keep your eyes open. And for 1 minute, and I'll time it, I want you to pretend to be that baby for 1 minute. Come out of your mind. Come out here. Let the earth be your witness. And be in constant, total amazement for 1 minute. And don't go back into the mind. Just stay out here, just for a minute. Anybody notice the birds? I never would have noticed. No? Okay, so anybody notice your mind jumping in? Yeah? Okay, so just a little experiment, all right? And that is, I think, what we're called. That is our safety place, is that pure awareness. And just like the Buddha, when those flaming arrows come flying at you, you hold steadfast. You have dominion over where you put your attention. You sit, just like he did under the tree. And you don't lift a finger to save yourself. And you just, and listen. So lastly, I'd say stay curious, my friend. There's a Dos Equis beer commercial, and it's the most interesting man in the world. And it's stay thirsty, my friend. So I say stay curious, my friend. Stay curious. This last summer, I went on a sailing trip on Lake Superior with my girlfriend Angelica and this other couple, Jim and Kathy Nolan. And it was hot on Lake Superior. It was 80 degrees, 85, flat water. It looked like the Caribbean for 5 days. And I've had a lot of experience on Lake Superior, and I kept thinking, this isn't the Lake Superior I know. Like, this is just odd. And we went up to Isle Royale, and then we crossed over to Copper Harbor, and finally, we come out of Copper Harbor, and it's 45 knots of wind. It's black sky, black water. And I'm like, now this is the Lake Superior I know. And huge waves, and of course, the engine conks out. Perfect, all right? And so it was one of those moments where I could tell Kathy, this other couple, she was watching me to see if I would panic. And at one point, we were pretty close to shore with all the rocks, and I was like, well, we got to put the sails up, and we have to sail back out into the middle of the lake toward the storm, toward the blackness, toward the huge waves. And I thought she was going to lose it at that moment, but she kept looking in it, and I just stayed in this. I knew we were safe. I checked in with my mind. I did everything about the boat that we could possibly do. Everything was safe. Done with the mind. That's all I have. To keep repeating, what could happen? What could happen? It's really scary. That would be not usually. That'd be staying in the mind. So I checked everything, used the mind properly for what it's worth, right? And then I went back into pure awareness, and I was like, we're in great shape. We're fine. The only thing I'm curious about is we could end up being out here all night. We might not be able to get to the shore for the next 2 days. This is going to be so interesting. And I found myself in pure awareness just being curious about what a disaster this is. I'm so curious. I know we're not going to sink because, I checked with my mind and all the boat, everything's good. Now I'm just like, my mind had nothing else to do. So I'm like, I guess I'll just be curious for the next 18 hours while we figure out what to do. And sure enough, we ended up sailing up to this Houghton, Michigan. There's an inlet there. And the name of the boat was Pookie. And I know from experience, because I've been towed many times, that how to call the Coast Guard. And I was telling Jim, okay, go down there and call the Coast Guard. And the way you do it is you go U.S. Coast Guard, this is sailing vessel. And just say our name and just tell them where we're at and we need a tow. So, because I didn't want to get on the radio. And so he goes down there and he's like, U.S. Coast Guard, this is sailing, and there's a pause. This is sailing vessel Pookie. And you hear the Coast Guard rap, say that again, there, skipper. Pookie. And the next thing I hear is P-O-O-K. And I thought the Coast Guard was going to come back and say, okay, schnookums, we'll be right out there. And but once again, that could have been, the ample opportunity in that situation for tons of flaming arrows of my mind. My God, I'm going to kill these 3 people who I love. We're going to sink. It's black out here. It's ice cold water. We'll survive 20 minutes in this water at best. Blah, 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 blah. But I didn't do that. I used the mind for what it's worth, stay in pure awareness. And in that pure awareness, you get to stay like a child, like a baby, completely curious in life. I wonder how this is going to work out, because we just don't have that much control over life. So when it's all said and done and we live outside the mind, we realize that life is not meant to be figured out, but to be lived fully. It's a beautiful ride, and all we have to do is be curious. And James Taylor says, the secret to life is enjoying the passage of time. Any fool can do it. There's nothing to it. Nobody knows how we got to the top of the hill. But since we're on our way down, we might as well enjoy the ride. Isn't it a lovely ride? Sliding down, gliding down, trying not too hard. It's just a lovely ride. Now, the thing about time is that time is not really real. It's just your point of view. Einstein said he could never understand it all. Planets spinning through space, the smile upon your face, welcome to the human race. So in closing, I just like to encourage you all to find what it means to live outside your mind and to live in pure awareness. And the gift will be constant, total amazement from moment to moment. Thank you. And with that, Michael will sing you another song. Michael.
Thank you, Michael. I've been on that sailing boat a few times with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had, Michael and I had dinner with Angelica a couple of weeks ago and talked a lot about sailing. And on the way home, I was so inspired that I wrote this song, and I totally got it to do it today. So this is Come Sail Away With Me. And if you feel like singing, please join in. It's pretty simple. Come sail away with me. 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 Under a moonlit sky, we'll ride a sea of diamonds. Dolphins will lead the bow, the bow. Angels will show us how. Come sail away with me. Come sail away with me. Come sail away. Come sail away. Come sail away with me. Come sail away with me. Under a moonlit sky, we'll ride a sea of diamonds. Dolphins will lead the bow, the bow. Angels will show us how. Come sail away with me. Come sail away with me. We'll glide away with the wind at our back, so we'll follow our hearts to the rainbow's edge. We'll follow the light, so come sail away with me. Come sail away. 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 Now, if you join me, I'm going to take a little trip. So close your eyes. Take a deep breath and let it all go. Imagine yourself out in your own sailboat. It's nighttime. The moon is full and bright. And the water's like glass. The rest of your crew is settled in for the night, and you're topside all by yourself. You decide to go stand on the bow. feel the breeze in your face. Feeling freer than you have ever felt in your life. You look up and see the moon. And it's as if waves of love are shining down on you, almost visibly, all different colors of the rainbow, but they're filled with incredible love for you, reminding you how much you're loved. For no reason at all. You didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to be anything. Just because you're you. You feel a joy inside you that is unlike anything you've ever felt. As you feel the love of the Creator bathing you, washing you, surrounding you in absolute unconditional love. You feel a joy swell up inside you that is so great and so grand that it brings tears to your eyes for all of the best reasons. And as you look down, you see that the bow has suddenly been joined with a pod of dolphins. As you cruise along with ease, you see them bobbing up and down and splashing. You hear the clicks and the joyful sounds, and you can catch one or two of them looking up at you and smiling. Saying, "We love you too." We love you too. We love you too. So take this with you today. Know you are loved.
And we will have a final closing thought from Mr. Foley. And as we gather in the circle, I would just like to acknowledge we are a community here at LHSC, so there's just a couple of things I'd like to acknowledge. Number one, I think we have our newest community member with us in the back who's been very good in the little bassinet, so congratulations. And we also have a renewed community member with us. David is here with us today, and he got a do-over after very scary health problems, so welcome back, David. Thank you.
Last couple of times I played here, I thought, well, I really need to write a song for the closing circle. So I did this week, and I hope you join me for the chorus. It's really quite simple. We are children of the stars. We are made of sacred light. We carry in our hearts the sound of one. The chorus. I am, I am, I am. I am, I am, I am, I am. We are one with the infinite, we shine with magnificence, we carry in our soul the light of the one I am. I am, I am. I am, I am, I am, I am. We are everlasting, ever love, forever light, forever love. I am, I am, I am. I am, I am. I am, I am. I will carry this love throughout this day with a heart full of gratitude. I will pray. I am, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am. Whoa.
So as you go forward today, I'd like to encourage you to take a moment to move out of your mind and into your awareness. If we dare to live in this place, we will discover the secret to life, to delight in the smallest things, just like a child. And what a lovely ride it is indeed. God bless you all. Amen.